Welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon and I'm the host of A Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. And welcome, Phil.
And welcome, everyone. And Sharon, today we're talking about a new assessment tool, and you've been using it with teachers in their classrooms, and that's our primary focus today, isn't it?
So this assessment tool that we are bringing to you today is the work of Nell Duke and her team of Ward and Klingelhofer, who have created what's called the Listening to Reading, Watching While Writing protocol. And this is so new, so it really developed between 2020 and 2023. They've now launched this as a free access to anybody tool. So because it's a tool that I've started exploring with teachers in schools, we thought it would be a great tool to bring to everybody, explore the tool a bit more and talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been trying in schools and what we're finding out. But I think the really important thing to acknowledge with this tool and the work that's been done with this tool is it's a tool that puts us in the teacher as researcher seat. So it's an informal formative assessment tool that's been designed to use in the course of normal daily instruction or after daily instruction when we're reflecting on students' writing or their reading.
Yeah, I like that it's covering writing and reading, because this is one of our concerns. We struggle as teachers, don't we, in how we're going to assess writing and reading, and this is a way of doing that.
Well, it's a tool that's looking at the reciprocity of reading and writing, that we know that one doesn't live without the other. And what we learn as readers, we are applying as writers. And similarly, what we're learning as writers, we are applying as we're reading. So it's about what we're doing with language and what we're doing with words and what we're doing to solve, to understand, to explore those things. So this isn't a tool that's meant to be replacing formal assessments. And I think, we know all of us around the world have a suite of formal assessments that make up part of what we're doing for tracking students. But this isn't replacing that. It's really been developed to help guide our observations and our attention to particular aspects of children's reading and writing that can support those formal assessments. So in between those formal assessments, what can we find out about our students? What is it that we can observe and give our attention to? What are the important things to observe and give our attention to in reading and writing? And how can we use that to what I will often refer to as the on-the-spot teaching? So what we can do right there, right then with our students, if we are using this as a tool as we are observing children reading and writing, because we don't want to just leave it with an observation. An observation, and I learnt this the hard way early on in my career, is I can do a lot of observing and gather a lot of information about my students, but the power is in what am I doing with that information as I am observing them. So what can I be gathering and finding out about my students that I can decide right there, right then, to teach children something to help them with the point of difficulty in that observation.
So it's a kind of a guide for teachers in their teaching, isn't it? Because we're not just observing, we're having some sort of, what's the most important things here that we should be looking at in reading and writing.
Yeah.
And I think I struggle with that as a teacher. Sometimes I don't know what the things I should be looking for and what's next that I should be covering with a particular child.
Yeah. And so first of all, we want to send people to the website.
There'll be a link in the show notes to the website.
Yeah. And without the website details, you will Google listening to reading, watching whilst writing protocol, and a dedicated website will come up for just that. And what is so powerful about this is it's not only a protocol that has been developed by researchers. This is what they say at the very introduction to the protocol is, and I've already talked about this, that it doesn't replace formal assessments, but that you can use it to help guide your observation, attention to particular aspects of children's reading and writing between assessment administrations, for example, as an alternative to running records. So I'll talk a little bit more about why they've mentioned that in particular, why running records in particular. But what they follow that up with is, and this I think is the most powerful piece of this protocol and the work of Duke and her team, is that they say suggestions are welcome. So this isn't a set in stone, concrete piece. They have been working on this piece. They have pulled together with real clarity, and we'll talk about the aspects of this protocol. But I have absolutely taken up those three words, suggestions are welcome, by bringing this protocol to teachers that I'm working with for us to explore, for us to try out, for us to wonder and question and consider how can this protocol help us really focus our observation and our attention on particular aspects of children's reading and writing that helps us teach them better and helps us understand them better as readers and writers, knowing what it is that they are bringing to that process, and for us to have a tool that not only guides that observation and noticing, but gives us a place to do some recording of that so that we have got that as part of our students' reading, writing story. This is a tool for observing and noticing and giving attention to particular aspects of children's reading and writing, so that it means that as we are observing children reading and writing, we're not thinking, well, what in the world do I catch here? What in the world do I notice? What in the world am I...
But it is current. It's what you're actually doing now, whereas a standardised assessment might have been a few months ago and you've got that information, but this is actually on the spot as to what those children need now.
Well, I think the other differentiation between, or the other distinction between standardised assessment and using an observational tool is in the word observe. Our standardised assessments aren't observational tools. We are not sitting and observing with children what they're doing as a reader and as a writer.
Whilst they're doing it.
Whilst they are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very different informal formative assessment that's allowing us to see what children are doing at the point of, as a reader, as a writer, where they have their point of difficulty or where we see their success of overcoming the challenge, what's been a goal, what they can now do that they weren't doing before. So it's nuanced, it's regular mapping of growth and setting goals. So it's responsive, it's dynamic, it's vital to moving readers and writers along in their journey. And we need to absolutely mention Vygotsky at this point, because this is about scaffolding students. This is about scaffolding their learning so that we're not having to, we can use formal assessment or standardised assessment to look at where is a child having some difficulty. But if we can, and we can look at that data and we can extrapolate and pull out and decide on what we might do, but an observational tool lets us right there, right then, make a decision about how can I scaffold this student into the next, where is their zone of proximal development? Like, what's their next move here? What is it? So that on-the-spot teaching that we do in response to that observation should be that that's the child's next step. So it's not just an information gathering tool. It's actually part of that process that we always talk about if we're sitting with the child, that there is that little process. Observe, decide, teach, and end up with a goal, with that next step. And that goal, in students' own words, about, right, so this is what I understand I've just done. This is what I take with me now to my reading or my writing. So I think, we want to see this as a tool to scaffold students' learning, and I guess to scaffold us as teacher into the process of what to observe, therefore what will I decide to teach a child in this moment. And so I can't be observing, I can be observing a number of things, but why we talk about it's a short observation. We're not observing absolutely everything about the child, but in a short observation, what can I see is the teaching point for the child.
Sharon, let's go to a quick review of this new protocol tool and how it addresses the teaching struggle.
All right. So I'm going to give an overview of the tool, but I'm also going to reference pieces that if you wanted to stop the podcast and to have some of these pieces in front of you as we're talking about them would be useful. So in Googling, listening to reading, watching while writing protocol, you will come up with a really tight and powerful landing page for this protocol. And on that page, the very first thing that you're going to come up with is a box that says, please read this first. And that is a blog post that is introducing this protocol. And that blog post is actually part of the International Literacy Association publication. It's in Literacy now, and it's called Observing Young Readers and Writers, a Tool for Informing Instruction. So in doing an overview of this protocol, I'm really going to reference that blog post And so in reviewing and coming back to it, you'll be able to have that as a blog that will give you all of this information, but to honour the work of Duke, Ward and Klingelhofer in this protocol, I really want to just summarise what they talk about in this blog to give the overview of it. So they start by talking about the importance and the power of listening to students read aloud as an essential practice for any primary age teacher. It provides that absolute critical opportunity for a teacher to coach or prompt students as they're reading or as they're writing. So this is what we talked about in the introduction, that it isn't just about collecting information, it is the opportunity to coach or prompt. So that's the deciding to teach something.
You're actually teaching on the spot.
On the spot teaching. And that's that link back to Vygotsky, is that we are scaffolding, we are prompting, we are coaching at that point.
But it's informed. I've had plenty of sessions where parents in my class have listened to reading, but we're talking about a more informed way of using that child reading to the adult.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
So they then talk about how traditionally many of us have used running records to derive information from listening to students read aloud. And the advantage of those running records has always been that they can be taken any time that a student is reading aloud. Any time. You need a piece of paper and you can take a running record of that. So the challenge that they've identified, and I think we all identify with running records, is that data can be so open-ended that at times it can lead to misinterpretation. So unless we're highly skilled in knowing about a running record and what we are looking for in what the reader is doing, it can be open to misinterpretation. And they give a specific misinterpretation, and I think this is an important one to mention, that some people have interpreted the misreading of words in a running record to be positive as long as the word is making sense in context. So we might have said, a child misread the word house and instead they said home, but it's got the same meaning, so it's okay. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, yes, it's got the meaning, but a running record should also identify, or as we're reading, hang on, the child has misread that word, not by meaning, but by the letters in that word. House does not say home. It says house. And so it's important that we want students making meaning, but we also want them to be using word identification strategies. And we want them to attend to the letters and groups of letters, which are critical to, being a successful reader. Running records explicitly signal only a few aspects of reading to attend to, and there are many aspects of the reading process that are worthy of teachers' attention when listening to students reading. So that's where the protocol, that's what it's trying to address. It's trying to address what's the range, what's the expansive range of things that we can be looking for, and how might we not catch everything at a time, but be far more nuanced in knowing what to be looking for, and therefore making very quick and easy decisions about what to teach there and then, what to coach, what to prompt in. So the tool is really giving us I'm going to say a broader spectrum of the reading and writing process, the combined things that a child is thinking and doing as they're involved in those processes. There are a couple other important features about this tool. It doesn't yield a level or a score, but rather it's pointing to the things that can guide instruction. So it's not levelling, labelling, scoring a child. It's giving us information about what we as teacher have seen and what we can do.
That seems to have been a missing piece in assessments, that here is something that's actually going to guide your teaching.
Yeah. And that it can guide it right there and right then.
Yep.
So I don't have to do the analysis. Yes, I can analyse, but I'm not collecting so much information that I now need to spend half a day analysing that piece to work out what will I do with the child somewhere down the track.
It's on the spot.
It's really that on-the-spot piece. And I will never forget the day that I learnt the power of that with a child, where I was so focused on gathering information that I actually hadn't given the child anything to work with. There were lots of points for me to work with, and I hadn't addressed any of them. I just collected that information for me to, at some later date, think, right now, which group will I need to put that child in with, with other children of like needs. I could teach something right there and then, and one thing being taught then gives them the thing to keep working with.
Because you've got to ask the question, what's assessment really for?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Are we going to make a pretty record of that child's growth or whatever, a lovely graph? Or what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's not dismissing the hard work teachers do around collecting information, but we do need tools that allow us to on the spot make the difference and do the teaching. Yeah, let me get to this tool, but it's an informal tool, and the whole point, I need to say this before I talk about the features of the tool, is that it's meant to be tailored to use it in the most helpful way to inform instruction. And that will be the second part of the podcast. We'll really be talking about what kinds of things have the teachers that I've been working with, what have we done to try and tailor make this as a tool to help us, so that we're not feeling like this is, once again, something as teachers that is being done to us that we do to children. Remember that invitation right at the beginning from the team. Suggestions are welcome. It's a dynamic tool. It isn't set in stone. It's how do we as teachers make it work. And
useful for you as a teacher. It's not to get a number to send off to somebody. It's useful to you. And
they give a lovely quote here from one of the educators who piloted the tool, who said, "This is the humanity of the tool. Especially during this time, we need to connect with our students as human beings. I'm doing this assessment to learn about you, the child. I'm interested in learning about you as a reader or a writer." So I think that's the headset we come from in now thinking about this tool and giving a bit of an overview of what it's all about.
I like that, humanity rather than numbers.
Yeah. So, and that really harks back to your question then, what is assessment really for? This is an assessment for humanity. This is about I'm with the child. I'm really here. I am so interested in learning about you as a reader, as a writer, and I'm here to help.
And we can really grow together with this tool as teacher and learner.
Yes, yeah. All right, so it's made up of a number of components, and I will just mention the reading and writing connection that's made very apparent and is made as a point by Duke and the team, because reading and writing are deeply related. Students' knowledge and skills in one area are typically closely related to their knowledge and skills in the other. So they've designed this protocol so that it could be used for writing as well as reading. As with reading, there is great potential value in watching the process of student writing, even for just a short portion of the time during which they're doing so. And I can remember learning very early on from Die Snowball that if I'm listening to children read at the very same time, it's a great time to even talk to them about their writing. I don't need to have separate times for those things to be happening. To do them at once is a powerful thing. So the formative assessment part of it. So in sum, the listening to reading, watching while writing protocol is an informal formative assessment tool designed to help guide attention to particular aspects of the student's reading or writing in order to inform next steps to instruction. In particular, the tools direct attention to the following things: reading and spelling of single syllable or multisyllabic words. So we have right up, you'll hear reading and writing being mentioned across both of these areas. So reading and spelling of single syllable or multisyllabic words. Word identification or spelling strategies. Letter formation and handwriting. Comprehension monitoring. Vocabulary strategies or word choice in writing. Fluency. Comprehension, including general comprehension, reactions and responses, genre, strategies, text structure, organisation and features. This is where people really need the sheet in front of them. There's a lot of things going on here, but I'm going to keep reading through this list. Now, there's a new word that appears. Love this. Comprehension, which is processing the meaning of the text in relation to one's purpose for reading. So what is one doing with their comprehension? And then there's composition, which is their reactions and responses, genre, strategies, text structure, features, purpose, audience, voice, sentence construction in writing. Now, it's not expected that all of these areas or all these aspects of literacy development would be addressed in every instance of using the protocol. Rather, its use supports attention to these constructs over time, with the purpose of helping us make daily decisions to support the literacy growth of our students. So all of this is presented, so I've read out this whole list of words, whole list of terms, but it isn't presented as a list. It's presented as a 2-page template that graphically represents space for us to catch information about each of those aspects. So this is a real shift in this as a tool, is that, say, when we're doing a running record, we do that running record on a piece of paper, or if it's one where we're using it with a printed script of the text that we're working with. Yes, it's on a sheet, and yes, there may be guiding questions for us in the analysis, but this protocol isn't for use in the analysis as much as it is in use as a child is reading or writing as we're watching them.
Right, that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
And we'll take a break there from part 1 of our podcast. We look forward to you joining us for part 2. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.